All righty. So we have Maggie Miller with us. She's currently a ranger at Pilot Mountain State Park. Curiously, she lives at Hanging Rock State Park, which I guess has to do with the housing situation. And she spent 4 years at Morrow Mountain State Park, and before that was in Florida. So she's been in different parts of the Piedmont and will give us some insight both on how fall color comes about, but also kind of what the progress or the forecast is for this year, and what we're starting to see and where we're starting to see it. And she's also going to talk about the fact that everybody loves to be out on the trail in the fall looking for color. And so she'll give us some tips on how to cope with that and excuse me, and just how to deal with that. So Maggie, take off with it. And if you have any questions, you can post them. Probably the easiest way is just to post them in the comments, and we will pass them along to Maggie.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here today. And I'm currently here at Hanging Rock before I head into my shift. So you can still see the green leaves behind me. So we're not quite at that peak here yet. But I was just going to start out by talking some ways to make your fall experience in parks the best. So fall is our busiest time of year in state parks because everyone wants to be out in the nice weather, see the beautiful color change. So what I recommend if you're looking to go during the weekend, because that's when most people have off, is to get up early and go in the morning. Get in by 7. Some parks open at 8, but most parks open at 7. So get there early, find a parking spot. Around 10 or so is when we start to fill up. So I would plan to make an early adventure and get out to our park system. Another thing I recommend is to check our websites. You go to northcarolinastateparks.gov. You can go to any of our park websites, and we have alerts up there in case there's trail closures, bad weather, anything that might come up that prevent you from enjoying the resource that you want to enjoy. So anytime that I go to a park, I always check the website. That's one of the most important things, because we have visitors come from hours away and they're like, well, we didn't know about this. Checking the website will prevent you from that happening and knowing what you might be coming into.
So Maggie, it also seems like the Facebook page, the state park's Facebook page, is updated pretty frequently on the weekends.
Yes. Yeah, so the state park's Facebook page is a great place to look. I know a lot of the Piedmont parks will alert our information officer so she can update that. And I know specifically Morrow Mountain has a Facebook and Instagram, and they do a lot of updates on that end too. So social media is a great place to look as well. And that can also update you of programs coming up and different events too. So color in the Piedmont. So of course I was in Florida before this, so I didn't get to enjoy much of this beautiful color. So when I came up here, I started in Morrow Mountain, and Morrow Mountain's in Albemarle, North Carolina. So it's the southern Piedmont. And what I've noticed from the past 4 years is that the color change doesn't really happen until the first week of November. And I even noticed last year that the best color was the second weekend in November. So it's actually a lot later than I think a lot of people expect it to be. And talking to ranger staff at Pilot Mountain, they're telling me that the peak color is usually around Halloween weekend. And of course, there's a lot of determining factors of what makes color happen at certain times, and if we're going to have a lot of color, and I'm going to go into that a little bit. But when you're making your plans, I would say that coming at the beginning of November or beginning of October is going to give you the best color here in the Piedmont. If you're going out to the mountains, of course, the higher elevation is going to produce color, earlier on in October. So if you're going to the Blue Ridge Mountains this weekend or something like that, that would be a good time to probably see that peak color right now. So trees change color. Trees go through this process because they're trying to adapt to cold weather. So this is way they're adapting to protect themselves through the winter time. So deciduous trees, of course, is going to produce those beautiful colors that we like to see, while our evergreens are going to stay green all year long. Evergreens have these cool adaptations, like a chemical similar to antifreeze that keeps it preventing from freezing, but also they have less surface area on the needles, and they have this waxing coat to protect the water inside their leaves, which helps them prevent from freezing when it gets really cold outside. Our broadleaf or deciduous trees, they have to go through a different process. They have to release their leaves in order to protect themselves during the winter time. So going back to, high school, middle school biology, we learned about, the cells, and the chloroplast is where chlorophyll and where photosynthesis occurs. Chlorophyll is that main pigment we see, that beautiful green color we see throughout the spring, summer, and beginning of fall. And that's where we get our oxygen through photosynthesis. But as the days get shorter, night becomes longer. This is actually the reason for why leaves change. So the daylight is shorter. So somehow the trees know that it's time for me to produce less chlorophyll in order to protect myself. So it produces less chlorophyll because there's less light going into these chloroplasts. So less light, the chlorophyll starts not being produced as well. It stops being produced altogether. And it lets the keratin, the orange and the yellows start to show through. So those pigments are there all year long, but they're being blocked out by that chlorophyll or that beautiful green color. So that's why we see those yellows and oranges, and they're there all year long. They just, the pigment just decrease at a slower rate than the chlorophyll does. So that's why we may see those colors. The beautiful red colors, I think those are most people's favorite. The reds and the purples are called anthocyanins. And they're produced because, so when the leaves are, going through this process, they start to form like a layer of cells to cut off the veins. So there's not as much water and nutrients going to the leaves. This is how the tree is protecting itself. It needs to keep that water in store for like the main trunk of itself. It's kind of like your heart. It needs all that blood or all that water to keep it alive. So it's cutting off the leaves. So it forms these tissues at the base of the leaf. So then they can eventually release the leaf and protect itself through the winter. But since the chlorophyll is not absorbing as much sunlight, it's decreasing. There's a lot of extra sugar in these leaves. So with the increased sunlight and the increased sugar amount in these leaves, it produces these beautiful purple and red colors. So what's ideal for this situation, if we want to see these pretty colors, we want, a very moderate temperatured fall with crispy, cool nights, but we don't want it to go below freezing. If it goes below freezing, this causes those cells, it's called the abscission layer, to form quicker compared to if it's a gradual change of weather, it will happen a lot slower. And that's where those colors are able to develop. But if these trees start to feel that the temperature is decreasing too quickly and too much, it's going to cut those leaves off. And that's why we might see a drop of leaves before we'd like to see those beautiful fall colors. Does anyone have any questions about the colors?
Well, so how come sometimes like certain trees, and I'm thinking of the sycamore, it's generally, I think it's supposed to be yellow, but it often comes out to be more brown than yellow. And what causes the brownness? And
it's, from what I understand, it's like the colors kind of combining together, or the colors already being faded out by the time the leaf drops. So it could be a mixture of chlorophyll, carotenoids mixing together to form that brown color that we see with our eyes, or it could be the colors, the pigments completely out of the leaves, and it's just about to fall. I know like beech trees, they'll stay on the tree all year long, but they have that crisp golden color, kind of like a russet potato like color to them. So,
and one tree that's not all that common in this area, but maybe of where you can find it, the tree that kind of gives the New England area all its pizzazz, the sugar maple. And I'm wondering if there are any concentrations that you know of in any of the state parks.
I don't know specifically, but I have noticed at Hanging Rock and at Pilot, the maples are starting to change already. What we've noticed first in the Piedmont is that the sourwoods start to turn those beautiful red, the anthocyanins start to produce even early as August. So the sourwoods and the maples and the dogwoods are all right now producing those beautiful red colors. Our oaks, which is mostly what's behind me, are still green, and they're one of the last trees to actually turn color.
So I know that Elk Knob State Park has got a little bit different, the terrain up there and the soil and the just the forest in general is a little bit different up there. Are you familiar with that area at all?
I'm not. I actually have never been to Elk Knob, but is somewhere I'd like to go. Do they get a lot more rainfall up there?
Well, it supposedly it has more of a northern type of forest.
Mhm.
And I haven't been up there in the fall, but it's supposed to be pretty gorgeous. And you've got a good view out to the north where you can see other. So I was just curious about what is it that makes that area particularly good?
I would say the higher elevation, that of course is going to make those leaves change more. If they get a good concentration of like rain throughout the year, that'll help keep the tree hydrated and keep be more likely for those trees to be really colorful. If we're in a drought in North Carolina, it's more likely for those leaves to fall off the tree because they're trying to protect themselves. So releasing the leaves is a better option than keep feeding the leaves. Yeah, anywhere I would assume from, in the Appalachians, Boone, Elk Knob area, Grandfather Mountain right now would be a great time of year to go visit those parks because they're probably in peak right now compared to the Piedmont, which we probably have a 2 or 3 more weeks before we get to see those pretty colors all through the trees.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
And can you give us a sense of, you talked about it briefly about the conditions that make for better color. And I'm wondering, I know it can start back as far as like over the summer. But I'm wondering if you have a feel for what the conditions were like leading up to this fall season and whether we're going to be looking at a more colorful or maybe a little less colorful season.
Yeah. I'm trying to think back to spring and you guys may able to help me, but if we have, as long as we have a normal spring, we don't have, a late spring, that's always good for fall color for the trees. And having a moderate summer, nothing with intense, temperatures, a normal amount of rainfall will lead into a good fall year. But I think it's been kind of dry. I don't know what you all think. I was trying to find a chart with some rainfall, but I couldn't really find one before I could meet with you all. But those are all good indicators of what our leaves are going to look like this fall. So in hopes for this fall, we hope that these temperatures still stay beautiful. We get a lot of sunlight. And we have those really crispy, cool evenings, which I think we all enjoy. We don't get below freezing too soon and for too long. I think it's going to be a beautiful tree season. I mean, just by what I've seen at Pilot Mountain and Hanging Rock, I think it's at a good start and it looks pretty beautiful to me so far. I can when I was driving to my house yesterday, I could see the top of Moore's Knob, and that's a couple 1,000-foot in elevation compared to where I'm sitting now. And you can see a drastic color change up there with the reds and the oranges and yellows. So I think that's a good indicator for what we could see here in the rest of the fall year.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like this weekend, especially starting Sunday, the temperature is going to drop quite a bit and it should be good for getting out. And it looks like cool nights too. So will that help help accelerate?
Yeah, I was looking at the weather and, we're going to be between, the 60s and 80s, during the daytime, which will be great. And then going into the 40s. So we're not hitting that below freezing point. It's just going to be those cool evenings that we want. And so I think it's going to be a great time. And I know Joe's got the map up here, so I don't know if everyone who's watching's been to these parks, but Hanging Rock and Pilot are up the northern end of North Carolina. And if you follow that blue line all the way down, that's the Yadkin River. Yeah, that's Morrow Mountain State Park. So it's closer to Charlotte, whereas Pilot Mountain, Hanging Rock's closer to Winston-Salem and Greensboro. All beautiful parks that I very much encourage you to come visit and explore. They're all a little different and but have great trails and great things to explore. And one of the other things I want to touch on is, I know everyone's so excited for the fall leaves, but there's so many other great things during the fall. A lot of animals are migrating during this time of the year. Something that I'm really passionate about is monarchs, and that's what's happening right now. Monarchs are, hatching out of their chrysalis, and it takes several generations for them to make the trek from Canada to Mexico. And right now they're on either their 4th or 5th generation. They're heading to Mexico. So all the monarchs you see flying over your head while you're visiting the parks or in your own backyard, those guys are making their big journey right now. We also, at the beginning of October, this is a great way to volunteer at Pilot Mountain, Hanging Rock. I believe Grandfather Mountain does this too. Is Hawk Watch. So we have hawks migrating. Most broadwing hawks are going to South America. Some may be going, to states like Florida, just are going south right now. So we record data on all that information. So there's dragonflies migrating. And I've noticed living up here that the wildflowers are gorgeous during this time of the year. So keep an eye on the sides of the roads. In open areas, you can see a lot of different colors just from wildflowers. So those are other things I keep an eye out for when you're visiting our park system.
So how would people participate in the Hawk Watch? Because I did that once years ago, and it was great because you get to hang out with people that know all about hawks.
Yes. If you're interested in helping out at Pilot Mountain, I can be your contact information. So you just ask for Maggie at Pilot Mountain. Anyone at Pilot will know what you're talking about. But if you email me, I can get you in contact. And if you wanted to help volunteer for the next year, we would love to have you. And I'm still learning too, but it's a great way to learn your birds, getting to know how the weather works and how that affects these animals. If you're more out in the mountains, I can get you that contact information too. But there are a lot of great opportunities for citizen or community science in our parks that are great during the fall season too.
So it's okay if we share your email address?
Yes. Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
And, I lead programs and, school groups and stuff. So if you have kids or if you're interested in bringing out your family and interested in a certain topic, that's available too through the system, and I can help navigate that as well.
So I think Morrow Mountain is a bit of a hidden gem. And yes. I was wondering maybe and a lot of people, it's so close to both Charlotte, the Triad, and the Triangle. Can you give us a little insight into some of the good places to go there and what you particularly like about it?
Yes. So Morrow Mountain will always have a special place in my heart, but Morrow Mountain is settled in the Uaris, next to Uwharrie National Forest. So Morrow Mountain is known for its Native American history. So Morrow Mountain actually just got the oldest prehistoric Native American site in the Southeast US called the Hardaway site. So there's a lot of amazing artifacts there. Of course, we are protected, so you can't take anything, but it's a really unique resource that we're able to protect there. Morrow Mountain's along the Yadkin River. It's where it transitions. So we rent kayaks, canoes, paddle boards. We have a swimming pool, which was built in the 1930s by the Civilian Conservation Corps. So something that not all state parks have, but it's historical. There are over 30 miles of trails there. I like Morrow Mountain's trails because there are a lot of easy trails. So for beginners or for families. And there's also a lot of more difficult trails, and there's some in between. And so I like that transition that I can offer to guests and let them make the best decision for themselves. But there is a lot of unique history at Morrow Mountain. And I know if it was a little closer to Charlotte, it'd probably be a lot busier than it is. I definitely encourage you to go visit the little town of Baden's next to it, and Albemarle. So there's restaurants and other places to check out nearby too.
Yeah, it looks like there's a fair amount starting to go on in Albemarle in particular.
Yes.
Worth a visit.
Yeah, I moved in May to come up here. And I've noticed an increase in visitation and small businesses popping up. So that's very cool for their town. And I think Morrow Mountain has a big part of that too. So.
Oh, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Great. What is there anything else that you'd like everybody to know about the fall season? I was glad you touched on the critters and the wildflowers, because I think people generally just focus on the color.
Mm-hmm. I guess just making, good decisions when you come out to parks, making sure you're educated on what the trails you are going out to. So look, is it easy? Is it moderate? Is it hard? Make sure you know what the blazes you're looking for so you don't get lost. If you have questions, call the park. We're happy to answer questions. You can email us. But it's just making those good decisions, coming early, and we're really limited on staff. And so just being patient with us sometime, because this is our busiest time of the year. We're trying to give you all the best experience we can with limited staff. But I'm happy to answer any questions. And if you want to come out to Pilot Mountain or Hanging Rock and need a program or interested in certain types of trails, I'm happy to answer those questions. I guess Pilot Mountain specific, if any of you guys are up there, we do run shuttle service on the weekends. And we're going to be closing down the road to the top at 10, and that won't open up till after 6 p.m. And we do this shuttle. We only have 90 parking spots on top of the mountain, and we have anywhere between 300 to 400 cars during this time of the year coming an hour. So you can imagine there's not much room for everybody. So that's why I recommend getting there early. If you get there before 10, 9, it might close up just because it's our busiest time. Get there early, you can still drive up there, but otherwise you'll have to take the shuttle or you can hike to the top. But just being prepared, and you can all learn about all that information on our websites too.
And you also have some great secondary access points to
Yes.
Pilot. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, Pilot Creek is my favorite spot. It's one of our another access point. It's a little farther north on 52. And this is where it's a really cool area because it's part of the Rosalind Carter Butterfly Trail. So there's a lot of beautiful wildflowers. There's some great hiking trails back there. You can actually take that trail into the main section of the park. It is about 3 miles, so you have to be prepared for that kind of a hike. And then we have Bean Shoals, which is along the river, so you can have some creek crossings. So that's another great area. There's Ivy Bluffs, which is on the south side of the Yadkin. And then we do have 2 canoe and campsites there. And there's a trail system back there, but it's very, so if you're not looking to go in with all the rush of people, there are areas you can go to and have a little more peace.
Yeah, some of the, that Pilot Creek is relatively new, I think within the last 5 years, and that's a real treat.
Yeah, our Friends of Sourtown Mountains, friends groups are our volunteers who make things happen for us when we don't have the money to make it happen. And they built that trail. The Pilot Creek Trail was all built by volunteers. So they're a great, thing for us to have around. And a ranger before me who was in my spot, he that open field area with all the wildflowers and stuff, he got grants from U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the Rosalind Carter Butterfly Trail to get seeds and milkweed, and so to make that area really what it is today. So I definitely encourage you to go out there. The best time to me to visit that area is in August. You can see monarch caterpillars and lots and lots of wildflowers. So,
well, great. Does anybody have any questions for Maggie? And we've got her email address up on the chat, so if you think of anything later on, you can touch base with her, and she responds very quickly. So, well, all right. Well, Maggie, thanks so much.
Yes.
Been most informative, and again, we're going to post this, and so if you want to go back and maybe brush up on something that you weren't quite sure about, or just want to watch it again, we'll have it up a little later this afternoon. So
thank you, Joe, for having me, and I hope you guys have a great fall season. And like you said, feel free to email me or call if you guys have any questions.
Okay, great. Thanks again, Maggie.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So I don't know if anybody has any other questions that are non-fall related, that are just general hiking related. We're going to try to squirrel away a few minutes at the end. If you do have any questions about gear, about places to go, just anything that that might be on your mind. So this is the first time we've done that, and we will do this at the end of every lunch that we do. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And our next get together will be in 2 weeks, and our topic will be, hold on a second. We will be discussing longer hikes. So if you've been starting out and have just kind of gotten back into hiking for the fall, we're going to talk about some hikes of some of our favorite longer hikes, like in the 5 to 10 mile range. So that'll be on October 28th, and we'll send out some information about that next week. So thanks so much for coming. And again, you can see this again. It'll be up on our Facebook page before long. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Have a good
Joe.
week.
Hey, one quick question. When does
Sure.
it get cold enough that we don't have to worry about snakes? That's been a big concern.
Well, so typically, if the temperature is below 70, you don't need to worry about them being out. There are some exceptions to that. Sometimes you'll see them like in the spring when it's been cold and the temperature might be in the upper 60s, but it's real sunny. They sometimes will come out and sun in the middle of the trail. Now, if you see a snake and it's like in the 60s or even, I don't know, maybe around 70, and it's stretched out across the trail, the odds are pretty good it's not going to move. So it's going to be up to you to move around the snake, and, you know, move around the non-business end of the snake. Just be real careful and try not to disturb it. In this area, in the triangle area, at least, the only venomous snake is the copperhead. We don't have any rattlesnakes or venomous water snakes in this area. So that's kind of nice. The only bad thing about the copperhead, as a lot of you know, is that they blend in so well with the trail and with the leaf litter. And you've probably passed hundreds of copperheads that you had no idea were there. So, but yeah, I would say probably upper 60s. Once it starts getting below that, then you shouldn't have to worry about snakes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You shouldn't really worry about them anyway, but be on the lookout for them, because I know I like snakes, but every time I see one, they for some reason take me by surprise. There is an initial shock, and then it's like,
right,
pretty cool.
Well, and you know, for those of us that might hike with dogs too, you worry about it a little bit too.
Yeah, especially with copperheads, because the dogs tend to find them, and then they're curious, and then their nose gets bit, and you know, it's pretty painful for the dog. So yeah, I would say once you start getting into the upper 60s and below, you should be pretty safe.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. All right. Well, we will see you again in 2 weeks. And in the meantime, the weather is going to be getting better and better. So get out and enjoy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.